I did get a request from Juliet. Oh, here she is.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Juliet. How's it going?
Okay, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Where are you right now? Were you traveling or?
I just got in like 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
Made a cup of tea and sat straight down.
Fantastic. Well, let's see if we can get Shona. I've just got a request. There we go. Yeah, I don't know if it's Alessandra from Bike Challenge. No, sorry, Ali. Let's see. Okay. We should be all here. How was your trip?
Oh, it was so good. Yeah, I mean, 4 days riding in warmth and sun, and yeah, it was fantastic. When
Got to say, I was pretty jealous. Yeah.
I understand that. Yeah, it's great. Lucky me.
Fantastic. Okay, let's see. I'm definitely getting a request from Shona, just same as with you, and I've clicked accept, and it doesn't seem to be working. So let's give it another minute. Hello from Edinburgh. Fantastic. Okay, we've got people joining. We had a few questions in the chat. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat, so people, if you do have questions, just send them through. Be sensible. I'll try to filter the silly one, but really there are no silly questions. So don't be afraid to ask. I'll have some silly questions myself, so it's just a matter of time before I embarrass myself. Let's see, why is this not working?
I don't know, it might be because when I joined, well, first of all, I sent a request, but then I had to click the video shaped button to actually join it after you accepted it.
Yeah.
Maybe do that. I don't know.
Okay. I feel like something has happened.
Oh,
Hello.
Hello.
I actually cannot see you. I don't know if Juliet, you can see. Oh, what's going on with mine?
I know what you look like, so that's okay.
I mean, ideally, yeah. I would rather you not see you rather than myself on the screen. I don't know if there's a way to
I've got all
change
three,
this.
so
Okay. I won't touch it again, just in case I break it, and then fantastic. If I do this, no, okay. Anyway, I can't see you, Shona, but
you know what I look like.
Yeah, okay. So I'm hoping people can see you both, so that's fantastic. Okay, let's crack on then. Thanks both of you for joining. And yeah, it's for those that have just joined the chat on the call. It's pretty straightforward. It's a Q&A, so you ask the questions and you'll get answers. That's how it works, and it's about bikepacking. So I'm assuming everybody knows the people on the call, but if I can ask Juliet and Shona to do a brief introduction of yourself, just for those that might not know you or might not know something about you yet, please.
Okay.
Juliet, do you want to go first?
So I'm Juliet Elliott. I'm a cyclist. I've got a YouTube channel. I make videos about all kinds of cycling, really. And yeah, I've done quite a lot of different kinds of racing in the past. Tried everything really, but currently I've been dipping my toe into sort of ultra racing and bikepacking and gravel racing, and yeah, pretty much moving away from the road and just enjoying a bit more of adventure and a bit less crit racing, I suppose.
Fantastic. Shona?
Okay, I'm Shona. I have a bike shop in Manchester. We started about 13 years ago after working in the bike trade and the outdoors trade, and essentially wanted to do a bike shop in our own image, which was making our own bike packing luggage at the time, bike touring, riding across Africa, just anywhere really, sleeping in ditches. And we've been doing that for the last 13 years. In between that, we take short, fast holidays. So doing ultra events ticks a lot of boxes because you get to go and see places, and you've got to get a shift on, and it means that we can get back to the shop. So it works in many ways.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, the talk is not about the Tor Divide. It's not about an event in particular. It's about bike packing. I will mention the Tor Divide now, and then we'll just move on. But yeah, for those that had come across the page or come across the event or haven't, the Tor Divide is a 2 days bike packing event. I call it challenge, as in you can use it to challenge yourself if you want to, or you can make it into a fun, relaxed event for 2 days. It's on the 18th of May in the Peak District, and yeah, just have a look on the website for more information, or yeah, by all means, ask questions about it. I'll get the ball rolling. I'll ask a question, but as I said, people, please do ask your questions on the chat. I'll have a look, and I'll ask them to our guests. So something I wanted to ask, I'm curious about, is what was your first backpacking or touring or trip on the bike, whether it was on road or off road or whatever, whether it was a big adventure or not. What was your first experience?
Juliet, you can go first.
Okay. Well, you sent over the questions beforehand, so I have had a little chance to just think over these when I was on the plane earlier today, but I'm still not totally sure because, well, I've got quite a bad memory. And then I think that the first time I went bikepacking was when I did this little quick bothy tour in Wales, and I was with two men I've never met before. It's weird how cycling works. You sort of make these connections, and I just kind of roll with it. So I got invited by the guys at Brother Cycles and rode one of their bikes, and it was with a guy, Tom, who runs the Wood Cyclery down in the New Forest. So I just drove up to Wales and met up with them. They'd organised the route and everything, and we just rode I guess it was part of the Trans-Cambrian Way up around the Eland Valley, and we stayed in a bothy. The weather was pretty bad actually for some of the trip, I seem to remember, but it just didn't matter. Like, I just absolutely loved it. And then I did come up with another trip that I remembered that I thought it could have been that one that came first, but I'm not really sure. Oh, you know what, actually? See, I knew this would happen once I started talking. I'd remember. My actual proper first bikepacking trip, can you call it bikepacking if it's on the road, or is that touring? I mean,
we'll call it, yeah. It's a trip on the bike. Yeah. I'd say camp.
It was actually my honeymoon to my now ex-husband, but we went touring in Japan. So we were wild camping for like 3 nights, or staying in campsites, and then like the 4th night or whatever, we'd get quite a nice hotel and really lower the tone by like hanging our dirty washing out over the balcony and stuff. Yeah, so that was probably the first one, now I think of it.
Amazing. Okay, wow.
Many years ago, God, like, I hate to say it, about 30 years ago, I travelled across Africa, and I basically backpacked, hitch rides, bought a crappy bike, rode it until it pretty much fell apart and couldn't be like hammered back together by people, and pretty much just made it up as I went along, really. I think actual bikepacking trips, I think there's some really awful photos of Rich and I, again, probably like about 20 plus years ago, with homemade bikepacking luggage held on with Velcro straps, dragging bikes through the middle of Scotland, because we used to just like throw maps out on the floor and look at bridleways and white roads and just draw horrendous routes and then just drag our bikes around it. So yeah, like you say, you just throw bags on a bike and go, whether it's bikepacking or touring, it's just riding your bike in places, isn't it?
Sorry, Shona, that was your first trip. You just went and traveled across South America as your
Africa. Yeah.
Africa. Sorry.
I got to Spain and I saw the ferry to Morocco, and I went to Morocco, and then I just kept going, and I didn't come back for about 18 months. It was better than being in Manchester.
Nice.
That's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, so some interesting first experiences. Right, we've got a question in the chat which I'm going to ask. So, how do you usually arrange your bike packing gear when traveling via plane? And what hot tips would you give us to make the experience less frustrating? Shona, I think you're just packing for a trip now,
Yeah.
and Julia, you just came back, so this is quite, great timing. Let's start with Shona, who's packing, and then we'll get to the unpacking, perhaps. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I guess a lot of people find the whole packing your bike up stressful. I guess a lot depends on your trip. If you're doing a linear trip, so you're starting in one place and finishing in another, cardboard bike box from a bike shop is a good thing to start off with. Spin your bars, take your discs off so nothing gets bent, bit of air out the tyres, take your pedals off, bit of bubble wrap around your derailleur, or take it off and attach it to the inside of your sort of rear triangle is a good sort of foolproof method of nothing getting bent or banged. When you get to the airport, put it back together. Find a nice sort of porter or someone there who can basically get rid of your box for you in the recycling. If it is linear, call ahead to a bike shop at the other end. Some biscuits and some coffee or a can of beer if you think it's appropriate. In exchange for a bike bag when you get there, or a box that you can use, always works really well. We've done that a lot of times and never had any problems. And in Europe, some of the airports actually have bike boxes that you can buy in season. So just check when season actually ends. But places like Nice Airport, for €20, you can buy a bike box at the airport, which again makes it a hell of a lot stressful for actually getting back and things. But yeah, I guess just spending a little bit of time packing it well will basically make sure that you get there and you won't have any issues. It's normally if people pack in a rush and forget things, do it on a clean bit of floor so you can see everything that comes off the bike and that should go in the box, because there's nothing worse than, as one of our customers did, turning up in South America and finding that you've left a small cog that attaches your roll-off to your bike and then having to spend almost £100 to have it air freighted out to get there. So yeah, work tidy.
That's a really good tip about Nice Airport. I didn't know that you could buy a bike box there. Now I want to ride to Nice.
Yes.
My tips would be, it depends on the nature of your trip, like you said. Sometimes what I will do is, if I'm doing a circular route, I'll fly out with my hard case and I'll book a hotel at the start of the route, and then I will book a room at the same hotel at the end of the route. And I'll ask them if they'll just store my bike box for me. And I mean, no one's ever said no to that. So that tends to work quite well. And then, obviously the cardboard bike box thing works too. In terms of where you're putting everything, I normally just bung all my bike packing bags in the same box as my bike, and they're all sort of packed, ready to go and just clip straight on when I get there. The only other tip would be to echo what Shona just said about being super careful that you pack all the bits as you take them off. Because, I think everyone's made a mistake with that at some point. It's something you never want to do twice.
Yeah, sure. Things like through axles and stuff, it's like, make sure that they're just all in there, because the amount of people who turn up and have lost a through axle, and they're all different. It's not so easy to find one when you need one.
Yeah, totally. Then the other thing I would say is, if you're going off on a say a long ride or a long bikepacking trip, always makes sense to just go on a little test ride in the place where you're staying on your first night. Like, before you set off on the whole trip, always do a test ride, because you might find out that something's not quite working, or you've forgotten to put something back, or you've done it wrong, or there's some sort of issue, and you want to really sort that out before you leave on your journey.
Some really good tips there. Okay, no, thank you very much. I think we've all, as you said, we've all done that, and it's always stressful to waiting for the bag, whether it's a cardboard box or whatever to get off the plane and inspect it and hoping that everything is still there and it's not just crushed. So some really good tips. Got some more questions. Please, people, don't be shy. So keep them coming. Let's see. I saw one from Alex. What's your favorite event / route / trip that you've done and why? Let's start with you, Juliet.
Favorite. God, there's quite a lot of nice ones. One really memorable trip would probably be when I flew out to California and I met up with a crew of people who were bikepacking in Los Padres National Forest, which is sort of in and around Big Sur and Monterey, that kind of area. So it was just a very, very cool bunch of people that I didn't actually know very well, but again, cycling connects. So I got invited to be a part of this trip, and we had to carry everything we needed for several days. It was quite remote out there. We even had to take water filters and that sort of thing. But it was just such good vibes. Like, I made some really good friends on that trip. One particularly nice couple had packed a hip flask of extremely nice whiskey. So that was always a treat at the end of a ride. And yeah, we just free camped and, cooked up easy food and stuff. And yeah, it was really, really cool. That's probably one of my favorites.
Okay, awesome. What about you, Shona?
Probably, as I say, probably the next trip. I don't know. I mean, we've done the Silk Road a couple of times. That's quite a cool event to do because it's very different to a lot of the stuff that we'd ridden previously. And like Kyrgyzstan is a very cool place. It's like the size of France with the population of Wales. So basically huge landscapes, very few people. The people you come across are just so incredibly humble and gracious. It's like a really nice place to go to. Last time we did it, we had a little bit of a moment because we sort of we're probably not going to come back again, where we sort of just sat and sort of just soaked up the surroundings because it was like, really beautiful one morning and things. But yeah, that's a nice place to go. It's a tough event, but it's really worthwhile to do because you get so much out of it, just the landscapes that you're actually in at the time. So yeah, that's a nice place. I'd like to do more in the stands, basically. We saw Tajikistan over the border last time we were there, big mountains, and thought, wow, that would be a cool place to go to as well.
Would you say more as a slow pace holiday or not necessarily?
Yeah, it'd be nice just to go and tour around and spend a bit more time because you see things and you go, actually, that looks like it's quite interesting down there, or there's some big mad monument 100 kilometers that way that it would be quite fun just to go and see. So yeah, it would be good. So maybe someone will organize a race there at some point. But yeah, sometimes it's nice to go slow and just get sidetracked by things rather than sort of having to just keep on a route.
100%. 100%. Okay. We've got a few more people joining and a few more questions, which is fantastic. So yeah, please guys, keep asking. There's one from Al who I've met during the Tor Divide in Scotland, and I think he met me at one of the possibly lowest points of my, I don't want to say my life, but let's say on the Badger, after half a day of rain, which I didn't know at the time was going to be followed by another 2 days of rain, and I just pulled some ticks off my leg. So yeah, I was not in a happy place. So he's asking, having bumped into Valerio on one of my trips, you can often meet really interesting people in the middle of nowhere. Question for both of you: what was the strangest meeting you've had? I don't know if I'm the strangest person Alan met on a trip, but hopefully not. Possibly. What about you guys? I mean, you've both been in really interesting and remote places. Shona, what was the strangest meeting you've had?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what is strange, being in the Atlas Mountains and there's like some local dude on a 3-speed fixed Sturmey Archer hubbed bike riding as fast as we're sort of dragging ourselves up a mountain, you know, chitty chatting away to us, you know, it was quite bizarre. And then even more bizarre that he'd basically spent, like, you know, many years studying somewhere that we both sort of knew and that type of thing. And if you looked at him, you never would have sort of guessed that, you know, that's what he'd done. Or being in the middle of the interior of Iceland and bumping into some American girls who were also out there, and they were all on Surleys and we were on Surleys, and we had like a big Surley love-in in the middle of nowhere sort of thing. You know, that was sort of quite strange as well. But yeah, you just meet loads of sort of interesting people on a bike, don't you? You know, it doesn't matter really what you're doing. You always sort of bump into some strange characters. Nothing sinister though, I don't think I've ever had, you know.
Cool. Juliet, what about yourself? Anything that...
Nothing really springs to mind. I always enjoy bumping into people on ultra cycling races, though. That's always just so fun. Someone who you've really not met before and know nothing about, but you're in this thing together and you have this immediate camaraderie and bond, and, you know, help each other out, or just, yeah, that's really nice. So I remember when I was in Patagonia racing recently, you'd be sort of really in the middle of nowhere, and then you'd approach a small town or whatever. You just know to look out for the bikes outside a cafe, and that would be the place. It would have been, you know, I remember going into one place in I can't remember the name of the town, but we'd just been through a really remote section and the weather was dire. I walked into this place and it was like this little piece of heaven. There were cyclists everywhere, hanging out their soaking wet kit over this big stove, steaming and ordering, you know, plate after plate of chips and drinking cups of coffee. And it was just such a good atmosphere. Everyone was in such a good mood because they were out of the rain. Sadly, we had to go back into the rain. But yeah, moments like those are really memorable.
Nice. Yeah, it's often not just the people, but the whole situation, isn't it? Yeah, it's just, it's also difficult. Well, I find it sometimes difficult to explain the, how odd some situations can be. And right. Okay, there's a question about the Tor Divide I can see on the chat. So I'll probably take that one, but maybe ask you guys to comment on it. So the Tor Divide, for those that might not be aware on the chat, there's two routes. One is 150 kilometers with 3,000 meters of climbing. The other one is 250 kilometers with about 5,000 meters of climbing. It's pretty much 60% off-road, and the off-road being in the Peak District varies. So there's this champagne gravel and this very rocky gravel. The question is, for an event like the Tor Divide, how minimal can you get away with on gear? How minimal can you get away with on gear? And how does booking a room instead of camping work under the self-supported rules? So I'd say in terms of equipment, there is a list of minimum kit required on the website. Please have a look when you sign up. There is a list, and there's mandatory items like a helmet, for instance. But if you're thinking of sleeping in particular, I'd say you're okay with an emergency BV bag for your own safety mainly. And things like a waterproof jacket are very strongly recommended. In terms of booking a room, there's no issue with that. However, the only rule is you shouldn't be pre-arranging any accommodation before the start of the event, meaning that you're more than welcome to sleep in bed and breakfast if you like to, but you should only arrange that after the start. And it's also recommended from a flexibility point of view, because you might not want to commit yourself to reaching a destination and then finding that you're unable to carry on, or you're too tired, or you're sort of forcing yourself to cycle in the middle of the night where you might have an injury or something like that. So there's various reasons for that rule. But let's see what our guests would recommend in terms of minimal kit in particular?
I would say be realistic about what you need to take, because, you know, at the end of the day, if the weather's really, really cold or it chucks it down, you want to be warm. And if you don't have something to actually keep warm and dry in, perhaps, you know, it's going to basically help towards you maybe quitting because you're really uncomfy. So, you know, though we all want to take as little as possible, it is sensible, you know, to have a warm pair of gloves if it gets really, really cold at 3 o'clock in the morning and you can't feel, you know, feel your fingers, but you want to keep going. If you got a pair of gloves to put on, you're going to keep going because you're warm. You know, if you lose your other pair of gloves, again, you might need some gloves. So I suppose just be, you know, I know that I can go and race and take a stupid light sleeping bag and be comfy and put up with being cold and know that I'll be able to get up again in the next morning. But what works for me might not work for you. So it's like, really be quite realistic about what is actually going to work with you, and do that rather than being led by what you perceive everybody else is going to turn up within their bags.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice. I think we are all so different, so it's worth just trying an event like this so that you can figure stuff out. But yeah, I would err on the side of caution. Like personally, there's no way I could just sleep in an emergency bivvy and then get up and ride the next day. That would completely destroy me. I need a thicker sleeping bag, and I know that when I get really tired, I get quite cold. So I always make sure that I've got waterproof layers and something extra to put on. So I would say, yeah, just sort of be a bit sensible about it. I mean, in the Peak District, hopefully you're not going to be too far away from being able to get a nice hot cup of tea or going into a B&B. It's not like you're, you know, in Kyrgyzstan. So do a bit of research before you set off, and then you can have, what I like to do is I do a Google map of the race that I'm going to do, and on that Google map I will have different resupply points or places you can stay. So you're not going ahead and booking things, but you can open up your Google map and you can have a look and think, oh, I'm here, so I'm far too cold to carry on tonight, that might be a good place to try and get a B&B. And then you've just got everything to hand, because you don't really want to be fumbling around and trying to do all that research on the go. It helps if you've already done it. Yeah, and then I don't know. I would just say better to take too much stuff the first time and go a little bit slower and figure things out. And then you can start removing bits of kit as you go along and you start feeling more comfortable and confident.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's really good advice. And I'd say it's very much dependent on your speed and on the weather and really on your experience. So if you're not sure, as Juliet suggested, better to be safe, better to bring that I don't know, that change of bib shorts or that down jacket, or, you know, especially the Peak District is not on some super high mountains, but it can get quite cold, especially when you're wet. So bear that in mind. Absolutely. And yeah, in terms of planning accommodation, it's always good to have those options. Call in advance, call a few hours ahead before you get there. Check if they've got availability. Keep tabs on it, and you'll be able to tell during the day, you know, how you're progressing. And that's also why it's important to virtually scout the route before the event. You'll see where, you know, the sections of road are, the sections of off-road are, and you can sort of be able to plan and predict how far you're going to go and where you'll be at the end of the day, basically. Let's see, we've got another flight-related question. Have you ever sent your bike box by courier to the end of a linear route? And do you have any experience of going on French or Swiss trains with your bicycle, assuming that means the bicycle unboxed? So rather than all packed in a box. Has either of you done that before?
I've never sent my bike ahead by courier, no. when it comes to the train question, I have taken Swiss trains a lot, and they are amazing. And the bike carriage is spotless, very easy to use. There's loads of space. I'd highly recommend it. So yes to Swiss trains. You could do a really nice trip using those for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I've not done the courier thing, but I know we've had customers who've used some of the specialist courier companies who will basically transport your bike for you, normally sort of aligned with some of the more sort of like Eurovelo routes and things like that. And the experience that they've had has actually been pretty positive. I've never heard of anyone having any issues. So yeah, I guess if it works for your trip, then it's probably an avenue worth exploring.
Okay.
Sorry, just to follow up, the original poster who asked that question was asking about shipping your box ahead to
Yeah.
the end of a linear route. But no, I haven't done that either.
No.
But
I don't see the point.
I guess it's the same whether the bike is inside or not. Yeah, it might make sense if it's a nice rigid box. But yeah, personally, and it sounds like both of you have done that before. For a linear route, the cardboard box solution, I think works pretty well. I've done it a couple of times myself. Yeah, it's something fairly easy to arrange if there are shops near the end. But yeah, there's options there. Okay, we've got another question from Alex. I'm just scrolling down. Let's see if anyone else. I'll go with that one for now. So. We started talking about ultra races. The Tor Divide is not an ultra race, so please don't be scared. But in terms of ultra races, do you both plan your races to the nth degrees? For instance, do you use spreadsheets to track where you're going to stop, what you're going to eat, how much you're going to eat, estimate speeds and so on, or possibly with experience you've just learned how to deal with that, and you just go and see how you feel and progress based on that?
I don't plan anything. I mean, I think what I've learned is you could. Well, I once heard a podcast that J. Peter Very did about plan and preparation. Is that, you know, people plan the hell out of things and have spreadsheets and, you know, are going to ride 200k and we'll get here. And the reality is that normally within the first 24 hours, everything has turned to shit basically and gone right out the window. So, you know, so for something like the Silk Road race or the Atlas Mountain race or, you know, the Highland Trail, whatever, if there's a checkpoint and there's a cut off, I normally sort of look at it and go, if it's 3 days to get there, I'd like to try and get there with 18 to 24 hours in hand. And that's my goal. And then if I've got some time in hand, my next one, I've also got, you know, I've got a day time. So then I'm sort of trying to build a buffer that if something goes wrong, I've not got to stress about it, that I've got, like, you know, I've got a day and a half in hand if I need to fix my bike or get a part, or it turns out to be really crap and I end up walking for 8 hours instead of something. So yeah, I mean, you meet people and perversely, you know, we've been on routes and someone's got their flip chart on their bike and it's got their route profiles and they're telling you that, you know, next such and such is going to happen, and actually they've got it wrong, you know, and I don't know why, but they've got it wrong, or there's been a route change, so everything that they've planned and their planner is actually, you know, pointless, and then they've rolled into a town and they've not bought food from that shop because they think there's another shop 30 miles down the road, and then actually there's not a shop 30 miles down the road, and suddenly they've got like 3 days worth of riding with no resupply, and it just all goes out the window for them. So yeah, my only rule is to try and keep a bit of time in hand for checkpoints, and if I see shops and food and liquid, I'll just always pick it up and carry it so I've got something, and that's it really. And I'll try and ride as much as I can and sleep as little as I can get away with, and that pretty much works.
Cool. Well, firstly, let me begin by saying I don't have as much experience as Shona, so maybe that sort of relaxed attitude comes a bit later, or maybe it's just super nerdy, because I really love all the planning and everything, and I spend hours like I was saying, I make the Google map, so that's really nice, and it's got all these different potential resupply points, and again, I don't rely on them. Like Shona said, I will always stock up on food rather than think there's another shop, but I have that, and I like that just for peace of mind. Then what I'll do is I'll create a kind of, it's only in notes, it's not like a spreadsheet, but in notes I will write down, I do break it down into days, and like Shona said, it never works. But anyway, this is just what I like doing. So I'll have, you know, the sort of distance that I'm roughly hoping to do. And then on that day, I'll put the main resupply points. So it will just say, you know, 170k, and it will tell me where there's food. So it will say town, 40k. And then it will say big town, 90k, that kind of thing. So it is sort of quite loose, and it's not something I'm planning on sticking to, but I like to be able to have a quick look at that to know, am I now setting off on a stretch that's going to be 100k without any towns at all? So if I hadn't done that research, then I would not feel comfortable just sort of blindly riding for as long as I could.
Yeah. I think generally that like most people sort of probably have a crib sheet, don't
yeah,
they?
that's
which will be like your breakdown. But I mean, I've seen people literally with a flip chart with like every route profile and stuff on it, and you're just like, wow, really? I mean, I think I found that really depressing if I had to look at every 3,000 meter pass that was coming up in the next sort of 2 days. It would probably make me want to just get off the bike.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes it's better not to know, isn't it?
Yes, that's why riding at night is good, because you can't see the hills.
Yeah.
Okay, what I take from it is never pass on an opportunity to eat, basically, and resupply, which I do. I'm probably because I have zero experience, more on the side of trying to plan everything, which, as Shona said, never actually works. But it's definitely worth having, an idea of what's coming, especially in terms of resupplying, and then it's up to people to make a plan or not. But just knowing whether the next town or resupply point is going to be in 2 hours or 10 hours, and whether that shop is going to close at 5 p.m. or at 10 p.m. So anyone thinking of doing the event, it is definitely worth having that sort of planning in place. Because you might not be able to do that on the route. You might not have connection, so you might not be able to check on Google Maps, and you'll just have to carry on and see, without really knowing what to expect. So, trying to control everything is impossible.
I was going to say, I think the thing with like sort of planning things is, okay, maybe our attitude is a bit, blasé about it, because once you've done a few, you sort of can wing it to a point. But I mean, I suppose what I'd say is that I've noticed is that people make plans, and when stuff starts to go sideways, can get very demoralized. And I've seen people quit. So the first year on the Silk Road was the year that like loads and loads of people quit, because nobody really knew what was going to happen or what it was like, and the fast people thought they'd do it in 7 days and took 10 days. We thought we'd do it in 10 days and took 13.5 days. And there were people who quit after like 2 days because they were like 100k or 200k behind their perceived schedule, and no one knew what was going on. And it was like, it took people 13 and 14 days to do it, but to quit after 2 days because you're 100k behind, and then you think that you're never going to catch it up, is just crazy, really, because it's just like, you don't know what's going to happen. It might be completely crap for the first 5 days, but then it may be easier going, all downhill, anything. The weather might be better. So yeah, I think like with the planning and preparation, it's a bit like you can plan it, but when it all starts to go sideways, just be prepared to adjust your expectations of what you can actually do and how the event's going to go, because chances are it's going sideways for everyone, basically. So
yeah, I think that's good advice. Like, the main thing is, I suppose for me, what I'm having is a set of information. I'm having some information before I start, rather than a set plan. I do remember one of the first ones that I did, I had broken down things into days, and it was just immediately clear that wasn't going to work. But since then, I've continued doing that just so I've got a kind of vague idea of how I might do it, but I am aware it's probably not going to work. But then the process of putting all of that together arms me with all the information that I need, and because I'm quite meticulous about it, it sticks in my head. So I'll be riding along thinking, oh right, well, I know there's a town in 80k, and it doesn't necessarily need to be I've decided on this plan, I'm stopping at that town. It just makes it stick in my head, so then I've got all the info I need.
I think that was a good segue into a question that I had, which is about change and, you know, things having to change sometimes and things not going our way during the trip or during a race. I like making plans. I like sticking with plans, trying at least, and I really don't like. I'm quite stubborn, so if I made a plan, I'll try to stick with it even when the weather is against me, or whether, you know, I'm clearly never going to make it to that resupply point, say, or, you know, when I'm just too tired to carry on. So not to bring back bad memories, I guess, but how do you guys, cope with changing? And maybe it could be a holiday, it could be a trip that you planned, and then you get there and the weather is absolutely horrendous, and you have to not do a section that you were particularly looking for, or it could be a race that you've been preparing for, training hard, and then you get there and something happens. It could be a mechanical, it could be, again, weather, whatever, and you just feel, and one just has to pull out. So have you, I know I think you've been through those experiences. How do you cope with them? And I think in bikepacking, that is part of the game, and it's something that, regardless of how much experience you have, how much you trained, it could happen to anybody. It could happen to someone during the first trip, or it could happen after 20 plus years. How do you guys deal with them? I guess that's the question.
Well, for me, I just see it as part of the fun. That's why I like these things. So I guess it just depends on your frame of mind. Like, what I like about bikepacking and ultra racing is it's all this sort of puzzle, and you have to figure it out whilst you're also cycling. So having to change everything and refresh your plans as you go along, I actually quite like that element of it. It's not just physical, it's mental. So I suppose it helps to see it like that. But for sure, sometimes there are huge disappointments, and you make decisions that you're later unhappy with, and that is something that I'm having to get used to dealing with. But when you're actually in the race, I have no problem with having to change everything up. I find that quite fun.
Yeah, again, I think it's I suppose because we don't overplan things. Yeah, it's you sort of just go with the flow of what needs to happen at the time. You know, if you can keep riding because you're feeling good, that's great. However, then if you get to a point that you're just absolutely trashed and you end up sleeping for 6 hours in the middle of the day, which wasn't in your plan, then, you know, that's equally good. I think if you need to scratch, I think, you know, it's like the old Mike Hall thing, don't do it at night when you're feeling low and it's dark and everyone's a bit sort of like, you know, pissed off with it, really. It's, you know, do it in daylight, but then occasionally things completely out of your control will just deem that you have to scratch. You know, you have an accident or you hurt yourself or you break your bike and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's difficult because I'm the worst. Rich is a bit more sanguine about it. I will beat myself up about it for days and be an absolute cow, basically, and whine and bitch and cry about it. But, you know, it's the way that it is sometimes. And then you just move on to the next thing, plan something else, you know, get it out your system.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's good advice. And yeah, it is part of the game, and it's part of the challenge as well. So speaking of challenges, we've got a question from Sarah. Speaking of rain, what are your best tips to conquer bad weather? And the Peak District, being the Peak District, will probably experience all the seasons in that weekend. Hopefully we'll have good weather, but if it does rain, Shona, you mentioned you definitely mentioned preparing for that. What what's the bit of kit that you'd recommend taking, or what would you recommend to?
Good waterproofs. I mean, nothing beats a good waterproof, basically. I mean, you're never going to stay completely dry because it's always going to run down the front of your jacket or the back of it. But, you know, if you've got a spare layer to put on, stick a buff around your neck, keep warm. I always take spare gloves because, you know, sticking my hands into a pair of warm gloves at some point is good. You know, if you go into a pub, find a radiator, put your gloves on the radiator and get them dried out so they're warm when you go back out again. But yeah, I think waterproof, lightweight over pants. I always carry a set of like ultra running, sort of really tiny lightweight pants that I can wear as a windproof as well. But you know, if it's super windy. But I think like waterproofs is something that ideally, you know, try and buy the best that you can afford to buy, because if you look after it, it'll last you for years, and it will just make it a far more pleasurable experience.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, waterproofs can be really expensive, but they're worth investing in because it will, you know, make or break your ride, really. The only other tip I would add would be, I mean, personally, I like to ride in a jacket with a hood, and one of the, like on my jacket, it's got a peak with a bit of metal wire in it. So you can bend that so it keeps the rain from just going straight in your face, which is quite useful. And then someone in the Andes had some really great waterproof over mittens, which I'm going to get. They're from Decathlon, not sponsored by Decathlon, but anyway, these 4-class mittens, and they were so waterproof. So he stuck them on over his regular gloves, and they were really good. Apparently, they roll down really, really small. So I think I'm going to get some of those.
Yeah. I was going to say OMM, who make all the mountain marathon stuff. They do a set of tiny, like Camelica, like a really thin soft shell that we carry those. They roll up like the size of an egg, and you can just put those on over your gloves, and it just keeps the wind off or keeps your other gloves like just more waterproof. And again, it's a tiny thing that is just worth carrying because it just helps.
Yeah, that sounds like a similar thing. So I don't have anything like that. That's the next thing I'm getting.
Cool. Okay, conscious of the time, so we're going to wrap it up. We just got a couple more questions. One from Simon. What was your what was your worst mechanical whilst out, and how did you overcome it?
Okay, so we did Silk Road the first year. We went back the second year, and I managed to have the most ridiculous accident in a guest house. It's always like the things that you least expect. So I was streaking across the guest house in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom because I didn't want to put my soggy shorts back on. I put my foot on a shag pile rug. I went arse over tit down the metal staircase, and I split my head open. So, you know, there you go, carry some steri strips, it helps. But we went back the following year because we'd taken the tandem to do it. And on the first night, it started at night, and we went down a hill, and it was like a hill where people basically drank vodka and threw bottles out, and we basically put a neck of a glass bottle straight through the tyre. We then spent 13 days sewing, patching, gluing a tyre, and riding on a broken rim until we got to the end of it. So we tried pretty much everything to fix that. We couldn't find a tyre the right size or the right type. But we improvised, and we basically sewed it, tyre booted it, found a discarded car in the tube on the road, then bought some snide Chinese super glue that melted everything it came in contact with apart from the tyre, and sort of eked it along. And again, we had to adjust our expectations for the amount of time it was going to take us, and not being quite so cavalier in our approach to like rattling down things on this bike. But yeah, you just find, you know, we were like going down the road, saw this bit of in the tube and sort of screeched and ran back up the road to get it, and we're like, we can use this, we can, you know. So yeah, you just got to make it up sometimes as you go along, really. And people do amazing things. One of our customers bought a £50 Chinese bike in Kyrgyzstan after he snapped his seat post when he crashed to get the seat post because the guy wouldn't sell the seat post. And then basically rode with this child's bike to the checkpoint and donated it to one of the children of the people at the checkpoint. You know, he was so, you know, he didn't want to throw the bike away. He wanted to continue riding. He bought this bike. He then carried it and gave it away. So, you know, he was determined not to give up. So, yeah, you can always find a way to fix most things.
Wow. I feel like I've not yet experienced real adversity. Stories are like, when is this all going to happen to me? Hopefully never. I haven't had any really major ones like you have, Shona, but I do remember when really in the middle of nowhere in Rwanda, I got hit by a motorbike on like a gravel track, and of course I was annoyed about being hit. I wasn't too badly hurt, thank God. But what really made me so cross was I just saw my tyre blow up, and I'm like, no, like, how am I going to sort this? This is just like the worst thing ever. So I thought it was going to be a race ender, but it wasn't. So quite an anticlimax in this story here. But yeah, so far I've not been too unlucky. I hope I've not just jinxed myself saying that.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, yeah, that is some, yeah, yeah, the vodka bottle through the tire. That is.
Oh, that was like 6 hours in. That was the worst thing. It was 6 hours in the dark, and you're just like, I really don't believe this. And then we spent like days riding around these towns to try and find the bike shop or someone who fixed bikes. And in the end, we're just like, oh, stuff it. We'll just have to keep going and eke it on until we can't. And yeah, and we got round, and we weren't last. So hey,
amazing.
Okay, last question. Then I promise I'll let you go. And you might not have had one, but one question from the audience is: what is your strangest sleep-deprived hallucination? Have you something that I hope people won't get at the Tor Divide? But have you been sleep-deprived so bad that you've been hallucinating?
I wouldn't say I saw anything in particular. It's just everything goes really, really weird. That's what I've experienced. Just, yeah, you know, riding along in twilight and you think that there's things in the shadows, all that sort of thing. Nothing that's particularly solid that I can remember. Just I remember things getting pretty freaky.
yeah, I don't tend to hallucinate. I just tend to get tired and then just say the most ridiculously stupid things. So we're like in Morocco riding in the middle of the day through these little villages, and there was all these big massive piles of rocks there, and they were covered with like really brightly covered material. And I said to Rich, wow, those rocks must be really special because they've like covered them up, before realizing they were just drying washing on them. You know, and I really didn't compute for like 30 seconds until I'd opened my gob and then realized what I'd said.
I mean, that's close enough. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Thank you. I just want to thank everybody that joined. Obviously, Juliet, Shona, thanks a lot for your time. It's been amazing to have you. And yeah, I really appreciate you coming here and yeah, answering the questions from people and myself. I hope to see as many people as possible at the Tor Divide. I've seen a few more questions in the chat, so I'll try to answer them later, perhaps. Yeah, as I said, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Really appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully see you soon. And good luck, Shona and Rich, for the Atlas Mountain Race.
Yeah, good luck.
Thanks.
Well, thanks, guys. Really fun.
Cool. Yes, we shall see you out there.
See you.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.